Hola, ¿qué tal? Bienvenidos a Desde Cero con Manuel. Welcome to Right from the Start. I am your host, Manuel Longoria, and today we have activist and aspiring lawyer Carlos Espina. Carlos, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Pretty good, man. Thanks for being here. So what we do is we kind of want to find out, from the start, where were you born? And the family and all how you got started. So, where were you born?
Well, it's actually, it should be an easy answer, but it's actually quite complicated. I was born in Uruguay, but it was kind of a lot of drama before that. So my dad, he first came to the U.S. in the 80s. He's from Uruguay. He was born in Uruguay, and he came when there was a dictatorship there. He was a journalist in Uruguay. And, it's not really good being a journalist during a dictatorship. So he got an opportunity to come here to the U.S. and study. He did his master's and his PhD here in the U.S. and then eventually ended up working at Texas A&M in the early 90s. My mom, meanwhile, she was born in Mexico, and she went to school in Mexico and was working there after graduation. And my dad, with an opportunity through the university, went to Mexico. He had published one of his works, and he was presenting it there. And while he was there, he met my mom, and they fell in love. At least that's what they say. And she decided to come here to the U.S. with him. In 1996, my older brother was born here in the U.S. And then, my mom, she was here with a temporary visa, so she had to do immigration check-ins every couple of months. And when she went to do the next check-in, they were like, hey, why do you have a kid? You're here temporarily, supposedly, but you're having children. That's kind of goes against the purpose of a temporary visa. So they took her visa away and deported her to Mexico. That was in early or late 1997. When she was in Mexico, she couldn't come back. They give them what's called these bars, so a bar to admission, so you can't come back for a certain amount of time. My dad would go and visit her in Mexico, and then eventually she got pregnant with me. And when that happened, she decided to move to Uruguay because we had more family there. So then I ended up being born in Uruguay while my dad was here in the U.S. And eventually she was able to fix her immigration status and come back here to the U.S. And we've been living here ever since. So I was born in Uruguay, but it was never really supposed to be like that. But, it's one of those things that happened in life because of what happened to my parents. All that unfolded, and yeah, I had the fortune, I would say, of being born in Uruguay because I got to be close to my family there. Spanish is my first language, and then also had a different perspective. I moved here when I was 5 and been living in the United States since.
Okay. So, family, you got brothers, sisters?
Yeah, I have an older brother. He's, like I mentioned, he was born 1996, so he's a year older than I am.
Okay.
Or 2 years older. I mean, I was born in 98. Actually, tomorr's my birthday. Now that I think about it, December 9th, 1998. So in a few hours will be my birthday.
Well, we'll stick around and sing you happy birthday there, man. So at what age do you move to Texas? And what was the reason for your move here to Texas?
Yeah, so since my dad, when my mom was deported, he already had a job here at the university. He's been teaching Spanish for over almost 30 years now, over 30 years actually. And so when my mom was deported, he couldn't leave. He stayed here while my mom tried to fix her immigration status. And when she was able to do so, she came back here. So she had already lived here before, but then she had to leave and then she came back. But it was my first time coming here, and my dad still has that job there at Texas A&M, and my mom got a job at South Knoll Elementary. She's a dual language teacher there. And they still live here to this day here in College Station. So it was always because of the university and the opportunity my dad had here.
It was for work. Okay. Where did you go to high school?
So I went to A&M Consolidated High School. I did South Knoll Elementary. Then I went to Oakwood. Then I went to AMCHS, and then A&M Consolidated.
Yeah. What year did you graduate?
2017.
2017.
Yeah.
Okay. During that time, I read at age 17, you started your first nonprofit.
Yeah.
And that was Football for the Future.
Yeah.
It's free soccer for kids. Tell me about that project.
Yeah. No, it's really interesting because I read your bio as well, and it's kind of that connection about sports. I've always found sports to be something that One, it's the way I met all my friends here in the U.S. Like to this day. I mean, I was actually right now the World Cup's going on, and I was commenting with my friends. I'm like, hey, this is like our 5th World Cup we watched together, because like the friends I have now, we've been friends our whole lives because of soccer. But when I was in high school, you know how to do high school sports. You need to be passing your classes. And around 2014, 2015, there started being a lot of immigrants who were coming from mostly Central America. And I mean, they were about my age, 16, 17 at that time. And they were really good at soccer, but they didn't know any English. So to pass their classes, they needed, help. And the coach, since I was the captain, he's like, hey, can you help these guys? You know Spanish, help them out with their homework so they can pass and play for us. And then in high school, that's when I made that connection. Like, soccer can actually be something not only where you meet people and make friends, but you can also make a positive impact. Right. So I just started getting interested, in helping people out. And I realized, you don't realize it growing up, but once you get older, speaking Spanish is such a very important skill. And especially with more people speaking Spanish even more now. So I was like, I'm going to start using Spanish to help other people. Started getting involved in different community projects. And in 2017, right after I graduated high school, I was going to go play college soccer, and I was looking on Facebook, all these summer soccer camps. A&M's offering their camp for $500 a week. This other camp is for $400 a week. Yep. And I was like, that's just really expensive. And I was like, well, what am I doing this summer? Not really doing much. I was like, hey, I hit up some of my friends who I've been friends with for a long time. Like, hey, guys, let's do something this summer. Let's like a soccer camp. And they're like, okay, sure. Just how do we start? Like, we don't know. Like, we were talking before the podcast, when you want to do something, you find a way how to do it. Right. So I posted on Facebook. I'm like, hey, this is my bio. I was captain of the high school soccer team for 2 years. Now I'm going to play in college. If any of y'all want to, I'm going to be at this park, Henderson Elementary, actually in Bryan. If y'all want to send your kids here, I can coach them for free for the summer. Next thing you know, I was coaching 100 kids, and I had all my friends who were helping me volunteer. And that's when I started meeting some mentors in the community, and they were like, what you're doing is really good. You should actually get it like all organized, get a nonprofit going. That way you can get donations, make them tax deductible. I started learning that nonprofit perspective, because all I had was the good intention of helping people. And then later that year, 2017, Football for the Future was born, and we did it for 3 more years until, the pandemic hit, and that basically just shut down everything for 2 years, and we haven't been able to do it since. Okay,
so that program no longer exists at this point?
Yeah.
Or are you trying to get it back up and somebody else take over? Or?
Yeah, so the issue we had was we did it 2017, 2018, 2019, and then with those 2 years of break, because of COVID, when I came back, all of the people who had helped me originally were in different places. I'm in law school now. All my friends were either not living here, or they had full-time jobs. They didn't have the availability they had before, and it was just really hard this past summer to get it up, because I had an internship. Other people were doing different things. So for right now, I would say it's not over, but it is, who knows when it'll come back, but the idea is still there. And maybe someone even listening could take up the idea. All you really need is some cones, a soccer ball, a place to play, and, coach some kids for free, and then you have a whole camp going on.
Y unas ganas, ¿verdad?
Y las ganas,
ganas de ayudar.
Yeah, that's the most important thing,
Because who benefited from this was low-income kids, right? And, was they just showed up and, hey, come on in, or did they have to sign up, or what was the process to getting these kids? Because I heard a few things about it, or, good things about it, and that's how many people, or a lot of people, know you because of this program. So, how did you, get these kids to come in?
Yeah, so, it's kind of those connections I had from before, since I knew a lot of people in the soccer world. I was like, hey, I know you have a soccer club. You might have some kids who are interested. I started printing out these flyers. I made them on paint. When my old computer still had paint, I made some flyers. And then I started posting on the Facebook Marketplace, and then La Pulga, how there's all those Facebook groups. And it kind of just started spreading. We did, and that first summer, we ended up growing to about 200 kids. But the first session was only about like 30 kids. And then those parents, kind of shared. Exactly. Then the radio picked up on it. My friend... I had a couple friends that were in the radio, and they saw it on Facebook. Hey, come talk about it on the radio. Radio Alegría was talking, hey, campamento gratis para los niños. And, naturally, one thing I've noticed is when you do something good, it just naturally attracts other people to it. You're not expecting it. For example, I even had the old pictures. You know, the elementary school let us use their fields, but the goals didn't have any nets. So we were using like wire. We were just trying to we got this string and we tied it around the goal. Next thing you know, someone drove by. Hey, you know, I drive by every day here on the way to work, and I see y'all are doing this cool thing. Let me donate some nets. So, you know, I wasn't expecting anyone to come help, but you just do good things and people are attracted to it.
Right. Yeah. I had a lot of that.
Yeah.
A lot of people help out in the community. With this, also, you had some educational camps.
Yeah.
What were those about?
Yeah, so the first year was just purely soccer. We were doing, it was 4 days. It was Monday through Thursday. We were doing soccer. And, you know, after it was really successful, but as I was debriefing with my friends, you know, I was like, soccer is more than just a sport. It's an opportunity to educate the youth, to introduce them to new things. So we thought about, you know, why instead of only doing 4 days of soccer, we change it up next summer and we'll do 3 days of soccer, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and we'll do 2 days at the library. I was like, okay, that sounds good. So I went to the public library. Hey, you know, do you have any space we can rent out, you know, or some sort of collaboration? And we ended up working out this agreement where every Tuesday and Thursday, summer 2018 and 2019, we were in the library in the room that they have upstairs, and we would do different activities. We would do like art and drawing and reading and like all these kind of different things, you know, just trying to get the kids understanding that there's more to life than just sports, you know, get them interested in art and all these other things. And yeah, it was just became a more complete camp when we added that perspective.
Yeah, and I think it's important for people to know what you did. Yeah. Because, you know, they're going to hear this and they're going to say, maybe I can start doing that myself. So it's very important for me to bring you guys in and say, this is what I did, because it teaches other people that it can be done, and, you know, we can help out as well.
Yeah, not only can it be done, you know, people really, it should be done, and it's a great thing to do. Like, I remember when I went to the library and I asked the librarian, she's like, yes, we've been waiting, you know, for people to reach. We have so many resources. And I remember they basically became like those hours we were at the library, like volunteers. They would be like, hey, do you need help with anything? Like, there's so many people out there who want to help and are willing to do so. So you might think, you know, I have this idea, but people might not be interested. You'll find a lot more people are interested in it than you think, and so many people are just willing to lend a hand, whether it be monetary, offering space like the library did, or just some guidance. You know, I've had mentors who helped me do the paperwork for the nonprofit. You know, you'll find so many people, but it's really just about getting it going, and then everything will work out on its own.
Starts with an idea and a dream, and go for it.
Yeah, for
gotta go for it. So after this, you founded your second nonprofit, and this is where you began your kind of activist, you know, part of your life, right? It was the Detained Refugees Solidarity Fund.
Yeah. So
at what age do you start this?
So that was in 2019. At that point, I was 20, about to turn 21. So yeah, when I was doing the soccer camp, you know, I loved it, but one of the things I noticed was a lot of people would come for me for different reasons. You know, like, hey, while the kids were playing, I would always talk to the parents and check in on them. Hey, you know, how's everything going? And a lot of people had immigration concerns. We have a very large undocumented population here in Bryan College Station, and there's, you know, a lot of issues associated with that people run into. So I started getting really interested in that, and that was the summer before I went to college. So I was like, you know, when I'm in college, I want to study something immigration related, whether it be like political science or Hispanics, so, you know, something to kind of be involved in that world. And I started getting involved with Brazos Interfaith Immigration Network, teaching the citizenship classes, you know, just getting involved in the immigration scene in general. So people started kind of knowing me, not only for the kid that does soccer camps, but the kid who also knows a little bit about immigration. So in 2019, one of my friends that I went to consult with, he's from Belize, and he, after graduating high school, he started working in West Texas in the oil fields, and he was undocumented. One of the times he was driving back from West Texas, you know, one of those roads where there's no one on there. He's going 80, 90 miles an hour. Police stops him. They're like, hey, you got a driver's license? And he's like, no, I don't have a driver's license. they kind of suspicious. They send him, run his records, find out he doesn't have any papers, and then they send him to an immigration detention center, which is basically like a prison, but for people who are pending an immigration case. And when he was in there, he reached out to me. He's like, I know you know a little bit about immigration. Can you try to, help me find a lawyer and also like write a letter on my behalf saying, they shouldn't deport me because I'm a good person, all this kind of stuff. So I helped him out with that. I would put money on his books, like they call it. I would call him. And one day out of curiosity, I was like, hey, is there anyone else there, who's detained, but maybe doesn't have anyone to help him out or is just there by themselves? He's like, yeah, there's a bunch of like people from Central America and even people from Africa who are here. They're like seeking asylum, but they don't have any family members, no one to help them out. I was like, send me their information, their A number, their alien number that it's called. And, I can try to help them out in some way. Next day he calls me, hey, write these numbers down. He gives me the list of 10 people and their information. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to send them $10 each. So I posted on Instagram. I'm like, hey, I have these 10 people who are detained. If anyone wants to help me, send them money. People started sending me money through Venmo and Cash App. And they're like, yeah, let me know next time. It goes back to the same thing we're talking about. You just put the call for help in the universe, man.
Yeah, you let it out.
And people who I didn't even like. Some people who I even thought like they started sending me. I'm like, I thought this guy like hated immigrants or something. Next thing you know, he's like, yeah, if like this is something really interesting. You start meeting, like making these connections you didn't expect. So those 10 people that he had sent me ended up referring me to another 10 people. So 10 people, I just started multiplying. Next thing you know, I was writing letters and sending money to hundreds of immigrants all across Texas and the U.S., people with different stories. And I have this boxes and boxes at my house of letters, of drawings, of everything that I got. And, as I started helping more people, the support also started multiplying. Right. So at that point, I had already had the knowledge of what are the benefits of having an established nonprofit. So let me go ahead and do the same here. And it was kind of the same story. I did it for 3 years. But then when the pandemic started, it kind of, we didn't stop it, but it was a lot harder because the mail was more limited. You couldn't go visit people in prison, all that kind of stuff. And you couldn't get together with the volunteers. But it was one of those things that was really rewarding, and we were able to help a lot of people.
So were you motivated by your mom's situation and your friend's arrest that motivated you to start doing immigration nonprofits and
yeah. Yeah. One of the things, when you're growing up, you don't really like notice things. You just see things happen and you're like, oh, that's normal. So when I was growing up, I had a lot of friends who, their parents were deported or family was separated, all this kind of stuff. You don't really understand what's going on. And then when I got older and I started, reading into things and getting into politics and just looking at the world, I was like, this happens for a certain reason. Like, there's certain laws and things can potentially be changed. You can be an advocate. You can fight for certain issues. So I started getting interested in that. And definitely like my parents' stories was a big factor in that. And then also the connections I made, friends that I met along the way, mentors. So it kind of, when one of the things I noticed, once you start getting involved in like nonprofit work, you just start getting like pulled in further and further into different things. So one of the things I had mentioned was I was teaching the citizenship classes with Brazos Interfaith Immigration Network. And there I met someone who was like, hey, you should look into this issue because it's also affecting a lot of people. And then you meet this one person who's working on this issue and they refer you here and there. And next thing you know, you're just getting kind of... you're really understanding the issue from a whole different perspective. So I went from, as a kid, you just kind of see things happening to now I understand the politics behind it, the economy behind it, everything going on. And it really just caught my attention. And it's funny because when I was younger, I wanted to be a soccer player. I was like, I don't want to do anything else other than be a professional soccer player. So when I kind of realized around 17, 18 that wasn't going to happen is when this new passion arises, which is this community work. Right. So it kind of was this transition. All that passion I had towards soccer kind of just shifted it to this. And I mean, every day now, because since I do my stuff on social media that we'll talk about in a little bit, people recognize me now at the store and stuff. Right. And they'll tell me their personal stories. And, that kind of just motivates me to keep going because you do realize there is a lot of need in the community, unfortunately. But you're able to do something about it. I mean, that's the best feeling.
Right. I think a lot of us are born with that.
Yeah.
I guess with that destined to help other people.
No, and you just get the satisfaction, you know, like it's like when you score a goal in soccer. That was like my adrenaline rush, you know, when I was young, like, oh, scoring a goal or assisting or, you know, just winning the game. But now it's like when you're able, someone comes up to you and say, hey, you know, you really helped me. Or like, I've met people who I used to write with when they were detained and now they're free. And like, you know, it might not have been a lot, $20, but when I was in there, you know, and we didn't have a way of making money and no one else was helping me out, like that really kept motivated me to go forward. So, you know, now that's my passion, helping people, and that feeling you get when, you know, that person's better off because I did something
that's
for them.
It's very addicting to you.
Yeah, for sure. In a good way.
It is. It's very addicting. From here, you get a degree in political science from Vassar.
Yeah.
We even talked about it.
Yeah.
Vassar College in New York. Why political science?
Yeah, because I didn't really know, you know, I wanted to do like community work after I had done that summer soccer camp, and I was like, okay, what area can I look into? And it was really between social work and political science or some sort of social science, but the school I went to didn't offer like a degree in social work per se. So once I got there my first semester, I talked to my advisors and like, you know, you would really like political science because not only you can learn, I guess, a lot of the history behind why these things happen. So I got to take courses about, for example, the history of immigration law. You know, I know people in my community are being deported, but I didn't know how these laws came to be. I didn't know that 50 years ago the thing looked a lot different. 100 years ago it looked a lot. So you're able to get that background perspective. Or for example, I know there's a lot of poverty in the community, but you know, what are the laws around this? How is this created? What's the history? You know, all these kind of things. So I really got interested in I would call it like some sort of enlightenment, you know, expanding your worldview on what you already see, but seeing beyond it. And I really got interested in political science, and I don't know, it's just at the same time 2016, you know, very memorable elections, so I was really on social media. I was always keeping up with the elections, you know, just so politics just became something really interesting to me in a sense, and I wanted to study it, and I'm really glad that I did.
Good. So from here you go to the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, where you currently attend the university, right? What are you majoring in at Nevada? Yeah,
so right now I'm in law school, and that really wasn't my goal. So I graduated college in May of 2020, and I was supposed to work for a nonprofit in Austin that they do like refugee resettlement. But that's when the pandemic started, early 2020. So that fell through, and while I was looking for another job to do, that's when I was also volunteering with Brothers Interfaith doing the citizenship classes, and you know, everything shut down, no in-person meetings, nothing. And they're like, hey, can you do these on Facebook Live? You know, do the same classes you do, but just live stream them. Imagine you have people in front of you. So I got used to speaking to the camera, and I'm doing these Facebook Lives. You know, I have 20, 30 people watching. The people that would usually be in person are now watching me online. I was like, you know, this online stuff is pretty cool. And someone commented on one of the lives. You're like, hey, have you thought about doing this on TikTok? And I was like, you know, I know what TikTok is because friends would send me videos, but I remember I even told one of my friends, like, don't send me any more TikTok. Like, that's just stupid. Like, I don't care about
goofy.
Yeah, I saw people dancing and singing. But after that comment, I was like, okay, I'm gonna give this TikTok thing a chance. It's during the pandemic, everyone's getting into it. I started looking into it, and I was like, you know, this is actually kind of addicting. It's kind of fun, but there's still nothing that I'm interested in. And then that's when I realized, well, if I'm not interested in something, why don't I just create content that I would be interested in? If I would be interested in, maybe someone else will be. So I remember early April 2020, I posted my first TikTok. It's, hey, you want to become a U.S. citizen? These are the steps. It's all in Spanish. Entonces, si quieres ser ciudadano de Estados Unidos, estos son los pasos. Uploaded the video. Didn't think much of it. Next day, it's at 50,000 views, and I had 0 followers. I'm like, how does a video... Because, you know, on Facebook or on Instagram, if you have 0 followers, no one's going to see your content. It's really hard for people who don't already follow you to see your content. So then I realized, you know, on TikTok, you can go viral. So I started making more content about citizenship, then started talking about all these other things, immigration related, and started growing my following base. In 2020, by the end of it, I had 500,000 followers, and people kept asking me, Carlos, do you know a good immigration lawyer? Do you know a good immigration lawyer? And that's when it clicked in my head. Well, everyone needs an immigration lawyer. Why don't I become an immigration lawyer? Took the LSAT, applied to law school, and then of all the schools that I applied to, the University of Nevada in Las Vegas gave me the best financial aid. And, you know, no one likes having debt. So I was like, let's go there. Let's go to Las Vegas and see what it's like. And I've been there for a year and a half now. I'm actually right now finishing off my third semester. So, yeah, it's been kind of just happened. One of those things.
Right. So, how much you got left?
So it's so law degrees are 3-year degrees. So I have another
1 more year.
Yeah, a year and a half left.
Okay.
I would be graduating in May of 2024.
Okay. I read on a, I guess, website or a report that in El Paso, you did some research with the U.S.-Mexico border.
Yeah.
What was that about? Or explain it to me.
Yeah, so the first summer, first summer after my first semester of college, so I was applying for internships, and one of the professors I knew, he taught a course on the history of the U.S.-Mexico border, and he shared with the class this like opportunity there was to do an internship at the University of Texas in El Paso. He's like, yeah, you know, some colleagues of mine run this program. It's like a research based. You go along the border and, you know, just interview people and collaborate with nonprofits. And I'm like, okay, I'll apply. You know, I just finished my first year in college. Probably won't get it, but who knows? And then I applied and I got in, and so I spent the whole summer of 2018 or parts of it, because part of I was here doing the camp, but I also got volunteers to help me with the camp while I was away. But I would travel back and forth, and while I was there in El Paso, yeah, it was basically this research opportunity where you would go collaborate with a different nonprofit and then like research different parts of the U.S.-Mexico border. My topic specifically was like asylum, because back in 2018, that's when the whole family separation policies were going on. So I got to kind of get a front row seat to that, visit some detention centers, and we went to the Mexican side, for example, met with families who had just been deported, met with people here in the U.S. who had been separated, and then had to write a paper about it. But it was
So what's the Border Network for Human Rights?
Yeah,
is that your paper?
No, so that was the nonprofit that I got to collaborate with.
Okay.
There was, I believe it was either 9 or 10 students, and there was 3 nonprofits we collaborated with. So it was like 3, 3, and 3, and I got placed with them, and that's the work we kind of did there.
Okay, because I also read that you met with 3 senators, U.S. senators.
Yeah.
Who were these senators?
Yeah, so back, the part of the opportunity, too, was getting to meet people, you know, who make policy. So it was 2 senators from, 1 from Utah and then 2 from New Mexico, because they were there down visiting the border. We got to meet with them. And since then, I've been able to, I've met a lot of Congress members and senators now, and especially now that I live in Nevada, which is like a swing state, so a lot of politicians go there. Right last month, I got to meet Bernie Sanders and Cory Booker and Elizabeth Warren, and like also through advocacy, lobbying. You know, I've been to Washington, D.C. a couple of times. But yeah, you know, it's kind of the other side of it, the politics. Because like I said, everything that happens in our community, you know, you see someone get deported and you're like, oh, when you're young, or if you just don't know what's going on, you think, okay, that's just how things are because that's how they are. But you take a step back, you start reading, learning about the politics. Oh no, there's like certain policies that are being created that are enforcing these, that are creating these laws, and then these laws are being enforced, and there's another way of doing things, you know. So, yeah, it's really interesting to think about.
So, I also saw on your social network that you were a couple of times in the news.
Yeah.
In the Univision.
Yeah.
Was one of them.
Univision, Telemundo.
They nicknamed you El Cartero De Los Inmigrantes.
Yeah.
How did that start?
Yeah, so when that nonprofit that I have of writing letters to detained immigrants started kind of taking off, one of my friends here in College Station, he's also volunteers at Brazos Interfaith Immigration Network. He's like, you know, you got something really cool going on. You know, like you should reach out to people so they can write a story about it. And you know, I was like, I'm not really doing it to get attention. You know, I'm just trying to help people. I was like, no, but maybe you'll inspire someone, or maybe, you know, someone will be interested. I was like, okay, well, there's no Telemundo or Univision here. I reached out to KBTX. They actually did a story. So did KHAGS. And I was like, well, I'm going to try to get in the Spanish media. So I reached out to the closest Telemundo, which was Houston, San Antonio, and Austin. I also reached out to all the Univisiones. And of all of them, Telemundo from San Antonio was the only one who replied to me. hey, you know, we really like what you're doing. Would you be able to come tomorrow for an interview here in San Antonio? I was like, well, why not? So we drove to San Antonio. I went with one of my friends and my mom. We did the interview and everything. And it's like, oh, that was awesome. Okay. Next week's, I get a call from Telemundo, the national network. Hey, you know, we're like looking at the local reports because that's kind of where we pick our national stories from. And we saw this report they did about you out of San Antonio. It was really cool. We'd never seen someone do something similar. Would you be interested in doing a story with Telemundo Nacional? I was like, yeah, sure. And they're like, oh, you don't have to come to us. Like, we'll go to your house. So they sent like a whole crew, camera crew and everything out of Houston to my house. And the journalist who I'm actually still really good friends with him. We've collaborated on a lot of stories since then. His name's Edgar Munoz. He's like, we need a nickname, you know, like television. That's kind of how it works, you know, something catchy. I was like, I don't have a nickname.
Like
my name's Carlos.
Or something,
yeah,
right?
he's like, okay. He's like, ¿Qué te parece el Cartero De Los Inmigrantes? I was like, all right, sounds cool. Yeah, so we did the story, and then from there, actually, Un Nuevo Dia, which is basically like Good Morning America, but the Spanish version. Like, hey, we saw, you know, can we do a story? And then they called me el Cartero De Los Inmigrantes on there too, and it just kind of stuck. And you know, I've been using, kind of spread out, and it's kind of funny how that came to be.
Okay, so how many letters did you end up writing and receiving? Because you would receive letters as well, right?
Yes. So I easily over thousands. It got to a point where and that's where the pandemic really kind of screwed things up for me, because I had a network of volunteers, especially at my college, at Vassar. I had a group of like people who would help me write letters and then receive them. So I would assign, basically, you know, someone would write to me and, okay, I'm going to assign this person to my friend who's in this class with me. And then he would be in charge of writing to that person. And if they needed money or whatever, then we would fundraise for whatever the needs may be. But me personally, I have boxes of easily over 1,000, 2,000 letters.
Right. So what was the best thing that came out of this? What do you think you were able to accomplish?
I think the best thing is there's actually a couple of people that we were able to so our monetary help was limited to like putting money on people's account or books, whatever you want to call it, so they can make phone calls or buy food or whatever. But I also got to meet people who have other nonprofits who have like legal help, and they help pay for bonds and all this kind of stuff. So I was able to actually get a few people released from immigration detention, because the issue they had is either they had no one to sponsor them here in the U.S. or they had no one to pay their bonds. So I would start collaborating particularly with a nonprofit called Raíces. They're based out of San Antonio and Austin. And I would refer people to them, and then they would find the resources to pay for their bonds or find them a sponsor or whatever they needed. So I was able actually to help get a couple people out of detention. And to this day, I still write with a couple of them on Facebook and on WhatsApp. So, you know, I was like, what started off as just writing letters, I actually was able to change some people's lives who otherwise would have been deported, or who knows what would have happened to them.
So do you have like a best, worst letter, sad letters?
Yeah.
I mean, what was the happiest letter that you received that you felt good about and made your day? What letter was that?
No, so the best letter was actually one of the people who was going to be released. He wrote to me. He's like, hey man, you know, they just gave me the news that like someone's gonna pay my bond and I'm gonna be out later this week. So this is like the last letter I'll be sending you. Like, thank you for everything, you know. And so that was really special.
That made your day.
Yeah, I also have a lot of like drawings. People, you know, just to kill time, they would paint, make all kinds of stuff. And I have a lot of like artwork. Even like, I don't even know how they would do it. They would make like necklaces out of chip bags. Like they would like cut the chip bags up to like little strings, kind of like threads, and then they would thread them together and then like make them so tight that it kind of like became really resistant, and they would make jewelry out of it. So I have a few of those things. And the worst letter I think I got was one that really hit me, was someone who was actually my age. Back then I was 19 or 19, 20, and it was this kid. He was my age. He was 19 and he was had been detained for a couple months, and he was just telling me how hard it was, you know, not being able to talk to his parents and all that. So I fundraised for him. We were able to get him a couple $100 on his book so he could talk to his mom more often. But, you know, just thinking about it, I think that's actually one of the driving factors in all the nonprofit work that I do, is realizing, you know, not everything for me has been easy, but I've had it a lot easier than a lot of other people. You know, I've been in a pretty blessed and privileged position. Right. Just, you know, growing up here in the U.S., you think, you don't even realize how big of a privilege it is to have 3 meals a day, be able to go to public school, be able to have an education, not worry about I don't know, like in Central America where gang members are recruiting and you know, killing people left and right, like a lot of things that we don't get to experience at the same degree here in the US. And I didn't really even value that until I started meeting people who were my same age and were risking everything they had, selling everything they had back home, leaving their family in their home country to come here and immigrate. You know, it really changes your perspective on life. And after that point, what you used to take for granted, you start to value it a bit more. You know, every meal you used to, I don't want to eat this because I hate this food. Now, like, you know, at least I got food. Now that your way of seeing the world kind of changes when you meet people who are in a different situation.
Right. Un día sin inmigrantes. This is your activist work.
Yeah.
Right. Day without immigrants. You were interviewed by Univision Despierta America for this, right? Tell me about Un día sin inmigrantes and how you became the spokesperson for this day, right?
Yeah. So most of the content I do nowadays is on TikTok. On TikTok, I actually just hit 4.3 million followers. So something I never imagined in my life. And most of my content is about immigration related issues. And with that comes a lot of advocacy work because, you know, currently there's over 11 million people who have no legal status and no pathway to achieving a legal status. So I make a lot of content, you know, trying to pressure politicians or just kind of raise awareness on the issue. And when Biden won, a lot of people were very optimistic, you know, that there was finally, after 36 years ago, that was the last amnesty with Ronald Reagan back in 1986, way before I was born. Right. And we've been waiting ever since. So people were really excited that with Biden, something was going to be able to get done. And then all 2021 passed, and you know, we're kind of still in the same position, at least immigrants are. So I started having these conversations on my live. When I get bored, I go live and I just talk to my followers. And I was just kind of airing out my frustrations, and people were like, you know, we're all feeling the same way. We should do something, you know, like do a protest or a march. And I was like, well, what do y'all suggest? And this idea of a day without immigrants, which is basically a form of strike, I would call it, where immigrants just don't go to work, kind of go to the streets and rally and, you know, trying to fight for their rights. I'm like, okay, I'll make a video, you know, hey, I got this idea. Are y'all interested? Would y'all join? And that video went viral. It got over 1 million views. And people were like, yeah, I mean, you know, I'm tired. Let's do something. I was like, hey, let's do it. We can't go back now. So I started making more videos, you know, Day Without Immigrants. Let's put a date, February 14th, Valentine's Day, you know, and we started organizing a march in Washington, D.C. And the march in Washington, we actually got like 5,000 people or so to go. There's not an official count because no one was actually counting. But I mean, a lot of advocates who were in D.C., they were like, you know, you got a pretty big number, and all from TikTok. That's pretty awesome. So, through TikTok, 2 straight weeks, I was making content, you know, Day Without Immigrants. And we got a couple thousand businesses to participate. People send their testimony from all over. And from there, a lot of people I've actually met now who are into activism, who that was like their awakening moment. Everyone has this, I guess, moment in whatever they're interested in, that they remember this is what got me interested in this topic. And a lot of people who before had never attended a rally or protest started leading their own events. So A Day Without Immigrants was basically that idea, you know, uplifting the community and trying to unify our voice and fight for that immigration reform that we're still waiting for.
Right. Because that changes monthly, probably.
Yeah.
Right? All the immigration laws and they're constantly changing.
Yeah. And unfortunately, they usually change for worse than for better. So, you know, it's really sad. I mean, even here locally in Bryan College Station, I've met so many people who have been here 15, 20, 30 years and have no immigration status, can't go back home. I mean, they have kids who are born here, but because they either entered illegally or because they've entered and gone back or whatever reason, they can't fix their immigration status, just simply because there's no pathway for them. I also have a lot of friends who have DACA, you know, they've been in a limbo for 10 years. So there's just so much things going on with immigration law that's kind of what inspired me, you know, to start speaking out, not only trying to change the system one case at a time, but, you know, change the system as a whole and hopefully have a better something that works better for everyone. Right.
So do you have any other events protests, anything coming up that you have in the books right now?
Yeah, so one of the problems I've actually run into is I have too much stuff to do, especially with law school. You know, I've kind of had to, my first year, I was like really just stretching myself thin between studying and like, you know, trying to organize all these stuff and making my videos on social media. So right now I've kind of also came to this realization that the best way to help people is for you to be as prepared as possible. And, you know, what I'm doing right now can be even 5, 10, 20 times bigger once I become a lawyer, and I can actually get in those situations, you know, sue the government or fight for this law, or, you know, even, I don't know, whatever lawyers can do once I get into that position. So right now I've been focusing a lot more on my studies, you know, trying to do well in law school and graduate. But yeah, what I've kind of shifted to is really supporting people, because there's a lot of natural leaders, you know, they just might not have as big of a platform, or they have a good idea, but they don't know the people to make it come reality. So I've kind of just sat back and, hey, this person has a good idea. Let me see if I can support them, and been working like that.
Right. And that's my next question. How do you motivate other people to join in what you do? Because some people just want to, you know, join the march or just, you know, like your pages. How do you get them to do what you do and grow? Yeah,
I think that's something really difficult to do, but also very necessary, because, you know, and I'm sure it's happened sometimes, like, you're just one person. You can't do everything on your own. Right. You know, you get tired, or you get sick. Yeah, you know, you need other people around you, or, you know, other people leading. And the biggest way I try to do it is when someone is interested, you know, when you see that spark, because a lot of people do have that motivation. They're just so afraid of actually taking that first step, you know. When I did that Un Día Sin Inmigrantes, I was like, the first video I made, I was so scared, because I was like, you know, this could completely flop. I'm organizing a protest in Washington. I've never organized a protest of this scale. Maybe one person will show up. Thankfully, around 5,000 people showed up, you know, but a lot of people are very scared of taking that first step. So I kind of try to help them, motivate them, you know, and help them, tell them my personal story, and see, you know, I was never alone, and you're not alone either. You might think you're alone, but as soon as you take that first step, as soon as you start doing good things, people are going to come at you left and right, and they're going to want to support you. So, and also a lot of times people, I feel like they don't understand how much power one person truly has, because while one person can't do everything on their own, they sure can make a lot of change. So I try to show people, you know, you're just one person, but maybe you'll connect with one other person, and then you'll be 10 people, and you'll be 100. So really just get away from that fear, get rid of it, and do what you want to do with your heart. And like you're saying, if you have your mind into it, your heart into it, your soul into it, it's going to work out. You're going to be able to do it.
Right. So as a law student and as a lawyer, what are your goals?
Yeah, so my biggest goal right now is graduating and then passing the bar exam. I'm still a while away from that, but it's always on my mind. And once I become a lawyer, hopefully, you know, what I'm doing right now, which is doing my stuff on social media, leading different movements, you know, doing that community work, hopefully I can elevate it to a next level. Imagine right now, where instead of going live and just talking about, hey, you know, this is what I did today. Hey, you have an immigration case, let me know. We can talk about it on the live. You know, like radio shows do, you know, or just connect with other lawyers. I just feel like once I need to get that out of the way first, become a lawyer, and then see what's next. But my biggest goal after law school is I want to create my own nonprofit. I already have, but I kind of want to like build it. Because, you know, so far what I've done is kind of like small scale things compared to the amount of need that's actually out there. Something that goes beyond just Bryan College Station, that goes to all of Texas, or even bigger than that, and involves hundreds if not thousands of people. And that's my big goal, to really get a nonprofit and grow it to something big. Okay,
and you say you graduate hopefully
May 2024.
2024.
Yes.
So who are your mentors? Do you have mentors? Do you have guys who you go to, look up to?
Yeah. I would say my biggest mentors are always my parents, because, you know, they're just, I mean, they've been, they've been with me since I was little, so they know how the way I think, and they're always
educated, right?
Yeah, and they always give me good advice. Also, my friends as well, because one of the problems I have is sometimes when I get into something, I kind of get that tunnel vision, and I want to do it no matter what it costs. So always my friends, hey bro, you need to like chill out, or like take this a little bit slower, or maybe think about doing it like that. So my friends, but along the way, I've also met a lot of people who are older than me, who have kind of gone through the same process. Local people here locally who either run nonprofits or run organizations or are just involved in community work in general. Recently, I've met a lot of immigration attorneys who have 20, 30, 40 years of experience, who have been able, every time I have a question about immigration law or this kind of stuff or anything, they've kind of guided me in the right direction. Also, as far as my content creation goes, I've gotten to meet some people who have 10 million followers, 15 million. I connect with them. So it really, you kind of find a mentor for every aspect of your life. And I think I have an expert in law that I can go to. I have an expert in social media creation, an expert in nonprofit work that I can go to.
Right, because on your website, you're like, I'm not a lawyer yet.
Yeah.
But this guy can help you.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's important too, because one of the things I try to be, that I've loved about social media, I'm not one of those people who just kind of shows people like a finished work. I do a lot of like informal kind of vlog stuff too, so people know who my parents are, they know who my girlfriend is, they know the school I go to, they know the classes I'm taking, so they're kind of in the process with me, and people know that I'm not an immigration attorney, but still people reach out to me with all these questions and stuff. I'm like, I'm legally and then morally, and I just like, I'm not capacitated to actually answer these things. So, but I've collaborated with other people, and that's one of the biggest things, like we just talked about earlier. You can't do everything on your own, but if I have people sending me immigration questions that I can't answer, what's stopping me from finding an immigration attorney who can? Or, I get people, hey, I'm in Houston, I need help with this. Well, I'm not in Houston, but I know some people in Houston. Hey, I ask them, and then we kind of connect people with the services they need. So it's about building that network, and thankfully I have a pretty big and diverse network now.
Right. So let's, we've been talking about content creation and YouTube and all that. Let's get into that, because you've been on YouTube and social media network for how long?
So right around when the pandemic was starting, so April 2020, we're about to be 3 years coming up pretty soon. 3 years.
And in those 3 years, you're able to get 3.5 million followers?
Yeah, so right now on TikTok, I'm at 4.3 million. On Facebook, I'm around 800,000. Instagram around like 260,000, and then YouTube I just hit 100,000. YouTube's the one I post the least on, because it's the one that takes the most time to edit the videos and all that, because most of the stuff that I do is short form content, those 20-30 second videos, which is actually why I've been able to grow so much. Because I say, for example, hypothetical video that I would make, say tomorrow the government announces a change to the immigration law or a new law, very few people in our community have the time to sit down and read a bill or sit down and read whatever the law is. But if I can do that work and read it and use what I already know to kind of compress that into, okay, this is, so I break it down, and hey, in 30 seconds, el día de hoy el gobierno anunció este cambio a las leyes de inmigración, eso es lo que tienes que saber, pam, 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 pam. People can share it, understand it, without them actually having to ever go and read the source for themselves, which might be very inaccessible to a lot of people.
Right, because your content, and I've seen your YouTube channel as well. It's a lot of informative videos. Yeah, and you also got like giveaways and stuff. Yeah. So it's a lot of good content, and tell us your information on social network, and where can they reach you?
Yeah, so my name is Carlos Eduardo Espina on all platforms: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and if in the future if they make another platform, well, that'll be my name on there too, Carlos Eduardo Espina. Yeah, it's kind of
Carlos Eduardo Espina.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, so man, it's been fun hearing your story and interesting, and I enjoyed having you here, and a lot of people, when I posted on Facebook, hey, I'm gonna have Carlos Espina on, they were like, "Oh man, let me know, and we want to go to the house and watch." And I'll post it when I'm ready.
No, yeah.
But there's a lot of people who are here who support you and know who you are and know what you're about, and only good things are said about you, man.
No.
And I guarantee that everybody appreciates what you do.
No, thanks, man. And yeah, it's really cool. That's what I've actually liked about Bryan College Station. I'm so glad that I grew up here, because it's like, I knew you before I even actually knew you, because I was talking before. I saw that you won the Hispanic Forum Person of the Year before and all this stuff. So it's one of those communities where you kind of just gravitate towards people and you meet people, and it's a really supportive community as well. Early on, I think back, now if you would have told me a couple of years back, you would have told me I have 4.5 million followers, I would have never believed it.
Right.
But all of that wouldn't have been possible if, when I was starting, doing this grassroots work, the soccer camp, all this other stuff, the people who always supported me were people here in Bryan College Station. I remember La Voz Hispana, Brava, Radio Alegría, all those people, it's a really tight-knit and very supportive community. So that's what I love, and that's why I try to come back as often as I can.
Always willing to help.
Yeah. No, so that's what I really admire about Bryan College Station.
So before we leave, you wanna add anything else to the podcast? Send shout outs, say hello to anybody, saludos, or anything you want to add.
No, yeah, well, one last message, I guess, because you never know and that's one of the things about social media podcasts. You never know who's listening. I've met so many people, you remember that they'll bring up a video that I even forgot that I made. I remember this video really inspired me to do this. So one of the things I would really say to people is, everyone has something to offer.
Right.
When I was just starting, for me, it was soccer. I was better than a lot of people at soccer, so that's something I can offer. I've never seen you box, but I would imagine you're pretty good. You had your whole boxing club and everything. Everyone has something they can offer, and we might tend to think that we're not something special, but we are special. To the right person, we are special. Right. So if you have that drive to help others, you want to do something good, just think about, maybe you're good at math, you can tutor kids. Maybe you're good at soccer, you can teach them how to play. Maybe you're good at playing an instrument, you can teach it for free. Whatever it is that you're good at, just share that with the world, and that really is fulfilling to you. I think that's the nicest thing about everything. You don't really get that monetary compensation, but you get that love, that from the community, and that's really special. So I would just encourage people who have something to offer, which is everyone, to go and do it, and you'll be rewarded for life. Right. And as far as shout outs, will always mi mamá, mi papá, mi novia, mi hermano, que siempre me apoyan, y pues toda la gente de Bryan College Station que siempre ha estado conmigo desde que era chiquito.
Desde cero.
Desde cero. Sí, desde cero. That's a great way to end it. Desde cero. Yeah.
So well, Carlos, again, thank you for being here, and I want to tell everybody to please subscribe to Desde Cero con Manuel, and subscribe to Carlos Eduardo Espina on his social media. So Carlos, again, thank you for being here, and we see y'all next time. Thank y'all.
Thank you. Yeah.